Right now, energy markets are highly volatile, and governments across Europe and Asia are scrambling to hold emergency meetings. On the surface, it looks like a standard global oil crisis is beginning to unfold. Most of this panic can be traced back to the Strait of Hormuz. This narrow passage is the only way from the Persian Gulf to the open ocean, carrying 20% of the world's oil daily. At just 21 miles wide, it's the planet's most important choke point. If blocked, the global economy faces total collapse. But oil shocks don't hit the world equally. The real story is about positioning. A disruption here crushes some economies, but quietly benefits others. Most people assume this plays out like 20 years ago, where Middle East instability leads to an immediate U.S. economic shock. But the United States has spent the last 2 decades changing its role in the global energy trade. In the early 2000s, the U.S. was heavily dependent on foreign energy, importing roughly 60% of the oil it used. Back then, when global supply was disrupted, American prices spiked and the economy hit pause. That changed when new drilling techniques unlocked massive shale reserves right here at home. Domestic production boomed, and the United States didn't just reduce its dependence on foreign oil, it flipped the script. Today, the United States is the largest oil producer in the world. This means the old narrative of American vulnerability is outdated because the U.S. is no longer on the same side of the trade as it was 20 years ago. Instead of being just a buyer, the U.S. is now a massive seller. This provides a level of protection that the country simply didn't have during previous oil crises. By producing more of what it needs at home, the U.S. has reduced the leverage that overseas supply lines have over its domestic stability. To see who is actually at risk, look at where that oil in the Strait of Hormuz is going. Only 2.5% goes to the United States. Meanwhile, China, India, Japan, and South Korea receive about 75% of it. This creates an asymmetric shock, where the same event has completely different consequences. For the US, a disruption is primarily a price problem, but for Asia, it becomes a supply problem. For American drivers, higher prices at the pump definitely hurt. But because the US produces so much of its own fuel, the problem is at least manageable. The country still has the oil it needs to keep moving. In Asia, losing access to the physical supply is a much deeper threat. When oil stops arriving, factories have to slow down, energy gets rationed, and industrial production can stall entirely. There is also a second layer to this: liquefied natural gas, or LNG. Roughly 20% of the global supply flows through this same strait, mostly from countries like Qatar and the United Arab Emirates. Over the last decade, the United States also became the world's largest exporter of LNG. This means that when supply from the Middle East is threatened, American companies are perfectly positioned to step in and sell to the rest of the world. Higher energy prices still create a drag for American consumers, but they also generate record revenue for U.S. producers and energy companies. This domestic profit provides a financial cushion that helps the American economy absorb the shock, while energy-dependent rivals have no such offset. This makes China the biggest potential loser in an energy crisis. They consume about 16 million barrels of oil every day, and they have to import 11 million of those, much of it through the Strait of Hormuz. China saw this risk coming and has spent years diversifying its suppliers and building up strategic reserves to buy themselves time. These reserves can delay the impact, but they cannot eliminate it. If a disruption lasts too long, China's industrial output faces a structural problem that reserves alone cannot fix. Because the core of China's economy depends on a constant flow of imported energy, any prolonged disruption in the strait quickly transforms into an existential threat to their manufacturing and exports. The timing of these energy tensions is critical. They started escalating right as trade negotiations between the U.S. and China were reaching a breaking point over tariffs and technology restrictions. In high-stakes diplomacy, leverage comes from economic pressure. If one side can tolerate an energy shock while the other side faces industrial collapse, that energy pressure becomes a powerful tool at the negotiating table. When looked at through this lens, the Strait of Hormuz is about much more than just shipping lanes. It is a measure of which country has the structural endurance to withstand a global crisis. The United States now holds the keys to its own energy production, giving it a unique form of leverage in global trade. In the modern economy, the ability to produce your own fuel has become a direct source of geopolitical power. If this changed how you look at the daily energy news, let me know in the comments. To keep untangling the hidden stories behind global finance, make sure to subscribe. See you in the next one.